I'm Michael Thiemann, the founder of Strategy Lab and the Entrepreneur and Leadership Academy. And I know exactly how you feel like an entrepreneur and leader. I was there as well. I remember very well when I started my career with an audit company and quickly realized that I wanted to shape the future instead of just looking at what happened last year. Since then, I have helped many companies to find new business ideas and scale them globally within innovative and sustainable business models. For the last decade, I have been helping companies in various industries define their vision and purpose and focus on customer-centric solutions to achieve their wanted results. Finding the proper toolset and strategies took me a while to find out, and I know how difficult it is for most companies as well. As strategy consultant and interim manager, I'm asked all the time to step in to correct and redefine the vision and result generating offer for their clients. In my first years, I made lots of errors, but I learned from them. I'm mentoring and coaching now entrepreneurs and leaders to do it right from the beginning. Therefore, I created this podcast. This podcast is about helping you avoid most of the time-consuming, costly and energy-robbing failures. I am happy to share my insights, knowledge and experiences with you in these podcast episodes. Welcome to a new episode of the Entrepreneur and Leadership Podcast. And today I'm welcoming Charlotte Kemp. She is a futures alchemist. That means she is a future helping people develop new ways to think about the future. She helps organizational leaders wrestling with the future to learn how to manage change, gather future intelligence, define, describe and design the future and create a roadmap towards innovative and growing relevance in the marketplace. Charlotte is a member of the Association of Professional Futurists, APF, member of the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, vice president of the Global Speakers Federation, GSF, and a professional member of the Virtual Speakers Association International, VSAI. Charlotte is also the author of a number of books, including Futures Alchemist, which presents a narrative of how to use your map, compass, and guide model to navigate unknown futures. For research and insight, Charlotte hosts a podcast series called Future Facets and interviews people around the world to gain an understanding of how we see the future from our different points of view. Charlotte's signature talk is Become the Conscious Futurist Your Industry Needs now, and explore ways to intentionally create changes that will usher in our preferred future for our own industries. I love one testimonial of one of her many clients said, "Your message created a methodology revolution in my head." And I'm so happy and proud to have you here today on this podcast. Hello, Charlotte. Should I add something, or you add something? What I missed out in your impressive profile.
Michael, thank you very much. I'm always very happy to share ideas about the future, and conversations like this allow us as futurists to explore and communicate our own ideas, as well as to kind of raise the conversation and consciousness of people talking about the future worldwide. So thank you very much for the invitation.
You're welcome. Future is a large topic, and if you ask three people about the future, what they think about, you get three different answers. And my first questions definitely is what is a futures alchemist?
All right, so it is kind of a branding technique that I use. Obviously, futures, like you say, it means a lot of things to different people. So very often we have to explain what a futurist is. And, futurist is someone who helps people to have these conversations. We don't predict the future. We don't read crystal balls. It's nothing like that. But it really is about working with people to find new ways that they can approach the future for the benefit of their organizations, their associations, their teams. So as an alchemist, I just love the branding idea. Old-fashioned alchemy were proto-scientists before real science was invented. people who were looking at taking the elements of one element and trying to turn it into something else. And they experimented. They practiced, some kind of creativity. They shared a lot of insight with each other. They talked to each other, and the more they did that, the more they learned. Now, they weren't successful, as far as we know, in changing lead into gold. But while doing that, they kind of created the assumption that things can evolve, things can change. So as a futures alchemist, I take the models and skills, the academic learning that I have, the practical experience, and I bring that to an audience, and we take their elements, what they're looking at in terms of their business or their industry, and we work it together. A little bit of art, a little bit of science, maybe a touch of magic, and we can create something new for the future.
Exactly. And the future has lots to do what you are going, every single person is doing on themselves to create and shape the future. And if you're talking about the future, and there exists probably helpful and unhelpful ways how we can think about the future. What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely, you're right. A lot of how we think about the future is affected by how we think about the past. So one of the conversations I have is about our nostalgia narrative. So we tell a story about the past when everything worked and everything was good and people behaved and children behaved and you could trust companies to give you good service. And it is a narrative that we tell that is not based in truth. There are some terrible things in our past, in our histories, that we have overcome and moved away from. But when we look at the future and we're afraid of the future and we don't know how to approach it, we don't know how to think about it, then it's easy for us to kind of retreat and move back into this nostalgia of how the past used to be. So, what I'm trying to do is get people to think about, new ways. Can we throw away, can we discard some models that don't work? And can we find new ways to either explore the future or create the future? And then we start to talk about language that gives us that agency over the future so we're no longer victims. And then we're on to a winning conversation.
I love it because my mission slogan is create future today. I'm placing under every post, and I even wrote a book about create future today out of the view of an entrepreneur. And what you said, it's everything, lots is based on our belief system, of our culture. Culture is more or less our experience of the past, our unconscious bias, our beliefs, which is good, what is bad, and you have to challenge it. You have to think newly, and I agree there completely with you. You can't solve the same problems with the old way of thinking, which caused the problem, I think, from Albert Einstein in a much better version than my framing here. And what in future thinking, strategic foresight sounds very complicated. How can I apply this to my business? I think most companies or entrepreneurs, startups, thinking about that. How can I apply a futurist approach to create a better solution for my clients? Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, the academic field is called strategic foresight, and it sounds really stuffy and inaccessible to a lot of people. So futures thinking or strategic foresight it's not incredibly new. It's not like it's just emerged. It's been around for decades and decades, but it has been reserved, those conversations, for multinational organizations and for governments and for military sources to be able to explore these concepts. And what we're trying to do is now bring this down to earth, so that people can use it. Everyday people, entrepreneurs, families can actually access this thinking. And it's always obviously a bit of a balancing act to take all the really good academic information and make it accessible without losing the value of it. So it is a little bit tricky to get that right. But I can give you a 4-step model to thinking about the future, which just, people can hear that and they can act on it straight away. So our very first step is to gather intelligence, whether it's about our company, our business, our sector, what is happening in our industry, what is happening in our city where our clients are, what is happening internationally for our industry. So what are people like us doing somewhere else in the world? And we don't have to get a degree in that. We just need to gather some information, some intelligence, scanning headlines, making ourselves aware of what is going on. And once we've got that intelligence, the second step is to manage change, to have the change conversation, because we're constantly changing. And if we're not, then we're not ready to go into the future, and our organization, our business will end. Now, change, a lot of people will talk about and say humans don't like to change, we resist change. And it's not entirely true. We don't like change imposed on us. We're very happy when we initiate the change and it's an outward change, and we're going to do something new. And the trick would probably be for a business leader, an entrepreneur, to be able to communicate with a team or with clients, to get them to feel like they have co-created this change, this new direction, rather than, some leader has come up with a new idea and they're now imposing it on everyone. So that's second part, is managing change. The third part is describing the future, which is just so much fun. And we need to have the conversation about what the future could look like, because that gives us the space for our brain to kind of imagine new opportunities, to identify opportunities, to identify potential obstacles. And it also gives us the opportunity to deal with our emotions, because we can't make logical decisions if we're in the midst of a huge emotion, whether it's elation because something great is happening, or fear because something bad is happening. So we describe the future, and then our fourth step is to take all that learning, create a strategy, and test it out theoretically, and then in practice, a little bit of experimentation. So it's gather intelligence, manage change, describe the future, test strategy, and you're a futurist.
I love your approach, and I see so much similarities what I'm doing as well, because we have this 4CAN model, I would call it. First of all, you have to know which trends are out there, what is impacting you personally, what is impacting people. You can take intelligence. You don't have to futurist, if you like. Just look at research, look at universities. They are publishing it every month. You see different research material coming out. What different trends is? Is it AI? Is it blockchain? Is it back to your region? There are so many different trends at the moment running. And I agree with the second point. Change. The whole life is a constant path, a journey of change. And if you don't change, you would still be a toddler or a baby. It means, you have to adapt, you have to learn, you have to grow. And therefore, the whole life, the whole business idea is about change. To change, to create results for people and better results. And therefore, you need a vision. And the vision is the third part, to think about the future. What is the future, the best future for people in general? And as an entrepreneur, I want to help people. And I envisage a future which is much better than today's. And then go for it and implement and test it. And then the fourth, I agree, is an agile approach. Means just try, error, learn, improve, and don't lose your vision out of sight. I love your approach.
And that's wonderful that we have such similar approaches. It just demonstrates that this, doesn't need to be too complicated, that there are accessible ways to actually think about it. And that's pretty solid.
Yeah. And you have always to think in the impact on people. Yes. Are they positive or negative? In solve the negative ones or amplify the positive ones?
Yes, that's right. And a lot of people I find have an emotional reaction. They say this is bad. And they say this is bad because it's new and unknown and unfamiliar and maybe a little bit scary. So what we try to do is just remove a little bit of that emotion first and get to understand what is going on. And then we decide, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Rather than leading with the judgment before we've really come to understand what we can do with whatever train we're discussing.
Yes, you have to separate your ideation from the assessment of the ideation. It means otherwise you never come up with positive solutions. And the next thing, if you look at COVID, I know it's dreadful, everybody hates it, but it's just crisis and accelerator of change, nothing else. Yeah. And COVID just made it very clear and obvious the digitization, which is running this trend for 20, 30 years more or less, has its impact, a very severe impact on those people who who are unprepared for that, especially for companies, and they're losing out. And we talked before we started this podcast a little bit about business model. And yes, for an artist, the business model is emotion. You be on this platform, on a stage, and therefore digitization is somehow difficult. But if you look at this non-fungible tokens for an artist, if you're doing paintings, you can create digital art. Even as an blockchain brings completely new possibility, even for music, to put the IP in a blockchain.
Yes.
And then you still earn by it.
Yeah. I know there's an innovative group here in Cape Town that explore what they can do with blockchain and with Bitcoin in terms of intellectual property protection. And what they do is they embed a little bit of code into movies. So when we download, initial movies that are released before the movie is actually on the circuit, and there's a little bit of code in there. And then as people start to pirate that movie and start to share it around illegally, that little Bitcoin code is generated, and people can actually track it, and they can discover where the leak came from. Who actually released this or sold this movie onto the market. So there's so many very innovative, interesting ways to take a little bit of technology and new insight and apply it to different ideas.
No, because we're just talking about trends. What do you think? What are the most important trends which are coming? That are coming?
Oh, wow, so many.
I know.
So many. What I love, I've just recently been reading a lot about what they're calling the Great Resignation, and for me, this is just opening up so many interesting things. So what they're saying is, in times of crisis, people who are employed by big companies and organizations, they hold on to their jobs for dear life, because they don't want to lose their jobs in this crisis. And they want to hold on to their job and their medical aid and their pension, payments and things like that. What they're actually discovering is that, particularly in North America, as they're starting to open up and go back into business, into the office, a lot of people are saying, we just experienced being home for an extended period of time. It was incredibly disruptive. There was mom and dad who are both working at home now all of a sudden and trying to find quiet space, and the children are there and they've been doing some homeschool or online school, and it was very disruptive and very messy. But slowly the families have kind of worked out how to do things and how to kind of negotiate and cohabit this space, and the families are finding more value in spending time together. And now they need to go back to work and go back to the long commute and go back to the canteen lunches. And they're saying, no. One or both of the parents will say, look, I'm going to resign because I know that I can now consult from home. I can work from home just as easily. So I don't have to be forced to go back into the office according to the employer's rules. And one or both of the parents might also discover that they can actually sell their services. They could be employed by an employer anywhere in the world. They can stay at home with their family. They can spend more quality time together, watching their children grow, helping their education, going for walks in the afternoon, and working for an employer in a different part of the world, and not be forced to have to comply with the local employer's requirements. So I think that is really changing, demonstrating not just, whether we're going back to work or whether we can work from home, being mobile, but it's demonstrating a change of values about how people actually want to live their life. They want to be more creative. They want to be more connected. And being connected doesn't mean being forced into a regular 9-to-5 job according to the old-fashioned models of business. So I think that trend just opens up so many new ideas and opportunities for people to explore.
Yeah, and there as well several trends they are working together. Means in terms of digitization, social media, people tend to build up their own assets. Like your network is your asset, and I open up my network for a company, for this project, or for this time span while doing a job for this company. And this mindset is changing completely. It's not this 9-to-5, this big resignation. What we see now is a big movement, and I agree there completely. It's a fascinating trend. And it's the whole way we are working together will change dramatically. I mean, with looking at AI, big data, Internet of Things, blockchain, you don't need a lawyer in future. Because if you can put the IP, your right, in a blockchain, why should I need to pay a lawyer for transferring a property from A to B? Like buying a house. I can buy a house in a blockchain, in a token, and so on. Or medicine, if knowledge is a commodity, if you like, because it's stored on a hard drive. And with artificial intelligence and big data, you have all information available. And just to repeat knowledge, which is for free on the internet, you don't earn money. Means even a medicine, just rereading a book and saying, I'm seeing this picture and that looks like skin cancer, a robot is much quicker than that. But what you can't do is probably emotion. Emotion is what people makes differently. And in the end, all business, all life is relationship. It's about relations, about connectedness, about your values, your vision. And I agree with you completely. That changed the world completely into another better world for some. For others who aren't prepared, they're overrun by this trend.
Yes. You're absolutely right. We really need to, as entrepreneurs, look very carefully at our revenue model. Because if we expect to be compensated the way we were a decade or two ago, you make a widget and you sell it. But if that widget is no longer valuable or necessary, then, you don't earn any money. So if we're trading in knowledge, if we're trading in something like that, we need to understand what are people going to actually be compensating for in the future? And if our revenue model and our business models do not change and respond to what is happening, then we're going to find ourselves, bankrupt. So it really is a challenge for us to throw out, to intentionally discard old models that do not work and find new ways. And that can be, obviously it's disruptive. It's a little scary perhaps, but the opportunities on the other side are amazing. And we really need to explore that. Yeah.
But what happened if there's a trend, but you don't like it and you don't want to adapt? What are you doing then?
I love that. Obviously a lot of people, they want to just go online and they want to Google the latest trend and they want to find it and they want to be able to apply that to their business. But some people go, I don't like that. I want to do something different. And for them, what they need to do is really uncover and explore, create a counter trend. Mm-hmm. And if you can do something completely opposite to what everybody else is doing, you find yourself a unique little niche market where you can earn some really good money, because somewhere else in the world there are going to be people who identify with you who don't want to have to do it that way. So for example, we can mass produce bread and it can come pre-sliced and we just buy it, but we were paid twice as much if somebody has made some artisanal bread, but having that handmade bread with the special herbs in it or whatever, that's a unique experience, an emotional or a cultural or a community experience that people have. And they're willing to pay more for it, even though it's counter to all of the efficiencies of making regular bread. And we can apply that to anything. We can find new ways to communicate to learning and education and training and futures thinking. We don't have to do it the way everybody else does it. We can find some opposite way and express ourselves as unique, creative humans. And that is really, I think, where the future is going to allow us to express ourselves so much better.
I love how you phrased it. It's so important to be unique, to be yourself, and that doesn't exist two Charlottes or no two Michaels. And I'm happy that I'm unique and somehow different. And to be different, you need your niche. The only thing you need to be visible. And with this technique, you're quite easily visible if you're using social media. But you have to build up your visibility to be then after a while the go-to authority in this special niche.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I agree there completely. In terms of where can people find you? Because just to go a bit, because the time is passing by, and it's really I could talk with you for hours, definitely, about future and our different views, our common views on the future. And there is no right and wrong for the future, because it's just based on your assumption, based on your facts, and about what you know about actual trends. And where can people find you to talk to you about about the future, to book you as a speaker? Because I watched some speaks or you put on YouTube, and you're quite active, but probably say a little bit where people can find you and send you a DM or an email.
Yes, for sure. So I'm on LinkedIn, and that's my best place to connect. I love to be able to connect with people all over the world, because like this conversation, when we're sharing these conversations across the world, it enriches what we're doing. So I love LinkedIn because I get to see who I'm connecting with. So that's a good place. And then my website is charlottekemp.co.za.
Yeah.
And people can connect there. I totally agree with you that we are unique, but I don't have a unique name. So there are other Charlotte Kemps out there. So that's why you've got to go to the .co.za, which is in South Africa. And there, there's information. I'm busy putting out my schedule of my open webinars, which I put on every month for next year. And there we explore different conversations, and anyone is welcome to attend those and sign up for free. And I present some information, then we get to talk about it and explore that idea. And we get to hear how people from all the way from Mexico to Pakistan to Malaysia are experiencing those issues, but from their own perspectives.
Wonderful. And just for all the entrepreneurs or people who want to start their own business, because I'm quite heavily involved in startup founders, and as well for SMEs to change their business model, what would your 3 best tips are to how to consider trends, or which trends should they look at?
I think well, let's start with that first 4 models. The first 4 steps is, like you said earlier, gathering your intelligence, managing change, describing the future, and testing your strategy. If you have that, ready every time you go into a project, you can just make sure that you're really trying to think about this clearly. So that's a good place to start. And secondly is to be very clear about what moves you as a human. I mean, I know we can't just be emotional human beings and expect to get money in the bank, but what really wakes us up as people, because that is going to be the unique thing that is going to separate us from the artificial intelligence and the robots in the future. There are other things that can do the work, but what is going to make an experience of working with me so unique and special that somebody would rather do that than just, engage with automation. So we need to be very clear on that. And then allied to that is not just what moves us or wakes us up, but what is the real value and solution for the client. And if you can understand what their need is and how you can communicate that, I mean, this is not even futures thinking. It's always been there, but we need to be much more clear these days about how we do that. So what is the real problem that our potential audience, our potential client is concerned about? And how can we craft something, or perhaps co-create something with them, that we can take our unique essence, we can meet their specific need, and we can create something that is unique and perfect for them. And that is a much more futures-focused way of looking at business, rather than saying, I've got a widget, I'm going to mass produce it and sell 1,000 a day. So I think this is a better way of looking at the future of entrepreneurship.
That's great. Thank you so much, Charlotte. It was really a pleasure talking to you. We could talk for hours, I guess, and we should do it in future time again. But first of all, there's a Christmas time. I wish you all the best and lovely Christmas time, and hopefully South Africa, the locking down or the blocking of South African country is over very soon, and all the best to you. Thank you very much, Charlotte.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much for the invitation. I really enjoyed speaking with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got feedback? I'd love to hear what you think about my content. Just drop an email to podcast@createfuture.today with Entrepreneur and Leadership Podcast as the subject line and share your thoughts. Feel free to recommend this podcast to your colleagues, friends, and family. Thank you.